I'm Belinda Porter of Heat Effect Life Coaching. I am a relationship and sexuality coach in business with my husband. I like to say that he's my partner in life and in business. I'm here today with my friend Amanda Wattie. And Amanda, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. So I am a somatic sex educator, and I met Belinda in person just a little while ago at an event that Pamela Madsen was doing in New York City. And I also then met up with Kevin and Belinda, like just to have some nice conversation over dinner, because we are both in this field and live pretty close to each other. And I was excited to just get together with you and just have a conversation about sex after that. Because I think
Great, thanks.
that's like present for a lot of women.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I apologize, I had to turn up the volume, so.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, we met up for dinner a while back, and during dinner, I shared with Amanda my story about my struggles around sexuality after I went into menopause, and the fact that I've overcome the problems. And I've actually had this conversation with a number of women over time that are struggling with similar things. And I said to Amanda, you know, I'd love to post this conversation on the website. And it really works better for me if I'm interacting with another person. So I wish I could take one of these conversations and just record it, but of course I can't do that. And Amanda very graciously offered to help me with that. So we're talking today about sex after menopause. I went into menopause at the age of 42. I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2002, and I went through chemotherapy. And the chemotherapy put me into menopause. But also because of the type of cancer I had, my type of cancer was reactive with estrogen, meaning that estrogen could promote the recurrence of the cancer or make a possible recurrence worse. So as a result, my doctors put me on estrogen suppressants for 10 years. And the menopause, even before I went on the estrogen suppressants, sex started becoming uncomfortable for me. I had some vaginal dryness. I just wasn't creating the natural lubrication that I had in the first place. And then when they put me on the estrogen suppressants, it became worse. And I talked to my gynecologist about this, and he just basically said, oh, just get some KY. And so I did. At that time, I'm not sure what was available in form of different types of KY, but I just got the basic KY, and it helped. It wasn't great. I hated the mess, but it helped. Well, then a couple years later, I had a total hysterectomy. They removed my uterus and my ovaries. They did leave my cervix, but that took my menopause to an even deeper place, where the hot flashes got worse. And there was a period of about 2 months when we couldn't have intercourse because I was healing from the surgery. And the first time we tried to have intercourse after the surgery, it was extremely painful for me, even with the lubrication. And I just basically didn't know what to do about it. Once again, went to my gynecologist, and he was not particularly sensitive to it. Basically what he told me, is your muscles are tight, so just take your fingers and insert them and stretch them out a little bit to kind of stretch those muscles before intercourse. And the person I was at that time, I wasn't particularly proactive as far as being an advocate for myself. This is a doctor, he knows what he's talking about. So I just took his advice, and sex became still became very, very painful for me. Even with the lubricant, even with using my fingers to stretch the muscles out, I could not tolerate penetration for more than a minute. And even then it was extremely uncomfortable. And that started a period of about 8 years, I think it was, where sex just became a non-issue. It reached the point where we were only having sex 3 to 4 times a year. I wasn't initiating it, partially because I didn't want the pain, partially because as time went on, I started shutting down my desire for sex. And that was partly because of the pain, partly just the idea of, okay, basically my sex life is over. So yes, I still had desires, but when they popped up, I pushed them down.
That's a
And
lot.
my husband, yeah.
To honor all of that. Like, that's a really, that's a long, 8 years is a long time. But
It was.
Everything then before that, like the breast cancer, the chemo, the hysterectomy, like that's a lot that your body went through.
It is.
You know?
And I didn't realize it at the time. I didn't really honor that myself at the time.
Yeah.
So.
I think that's such an important step when we do get there, to really honor what's happening or what's happened to our body.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So yes, it was the better part of 8 years that we kind of just existed that way. And one of the other factors in it, excuse me, was at that time, I had a very narrow view of what sex was. To me, sex was intercourse. And if my partner didn't ejaculate, then I was a failure. And I was cheating myself out of, and I don't like this word, but I'm going to use it, I was cheating myself out of foreplay.
Okay.
Because to me, foreplay was exactly what the word implies. Foreplay. Just a way to get ready for the main event.
So what word do you like now? You said you don't like that word. So do you like it?
I haven't found one I just like to call the whole thing play.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes where it goes.
Yes.
And that's something that's shifted for me through the work that I've done. And I have found that by actually honoring myself, honoring my need for sensual touch and time, I actually become more aroused. I want it more often. And it's just so much more pleasurable in the first place. And you know, sometimes I can have orgasms without even having any genital contact. Because I've learned my body well enough to know how to play with it myself. And I've taught my husband how to play with it as well, to really be able to sink into that pleasure.
Can you talk about those orgasms that you have that aren't genitally focused? I'm just curious about that.
Part of it is I've also learned a different way of looking at orgasm. This goes back to the way I looked at things before. And there are times when I orgasm when I can feel the contractions in my vagina. The old me looked at that as proof. You know, I almost stepped in my masculine side there, where I needed to feel those contractions to actually prove that I was climaxing.
Okay.
And between the menopause, the hysterectomy, changes in my body, it reached the point where I could not feel those contractions anymore. Looking at, and I'm actually going to start using the word climax, not orgasm, because to me, climax is that moment when you go over, when you have the contractions in your vagina, or a man ejaculates. Versus orgasm is being in an orgasmic state where I am just in the feelings in my body, into the sensations. Sometimes there's a bit of an altered state, consciousness-wise as well. That to me is orgasm, whether or not I actually climax. So yes, I can stay in an orgasmic state for a while without climaxing.
Yeah, and it would seem the key thing there is arousal, that you're really dropping into that and riding that wave.
Yes.
That be the main thing.
Absolutely. Yep. And I found I'm a person who needs time to do that. And I wasn't giving myself permission to take the time.
Would you say most women need that time?
No, I wouldn't actually. A lot probably do. One of the modalities I work with is actually blueprints.
Okay.
And have you ever heard of the love languages?
Yep, I have.
Okay. One of the ways of thinking this is the love languages for the bedroom.
Okay, cool.
And it actually recognizes that we don't all get turned on the same way. We have a cultural perception that all women are sensual and they get turned on by sensual touch, by romance, by kissing, and all men are sexual. They're ready to go anytime. And that's not the way it is. There are women who are energetic, and the energetics get turned on by space, tease, anticipation. There are men who are energetic as well. The same with the sensual. They get they're turned on by beauty. I love this hanging I have behind me because it sets such a nice scene. The right type of touch, the right smell. That's the characteristic of what turns on a sensual. Sexual, just plain love, sex. And as I said, we have this perception that men are sexual. They're ready to go at any time. And that's not true. We have men who are energetics, we have men who are sensuals, we have men who are sexuals, and we have men who are kinkies, which is another one. And kinky is anything that's outside of somebody's personal comfort zone. Outside enough that they want to try it and experiment with it and push an edge, versus outside where it's something they really aren't interested in. And then the fifth blueprint is what we call shapeshifter. And shapeshifters have aspects of all the other blueprints. So yes, I do follow the stereotypical, I'm a woman, I tend to be turned on more by sensual things. And by learning to give myself that time to really sink into my sensual, I not only get more turned on, I'm more ready for sex, specifically intercourse. One of the other things I've learned, I used to get UTIs all the time after sex, to the point where my doctor prescribed me a low-dose antibiotic to take after sex to prevent UTIs. What I found out, I just found this out last year, is there's a structure inside our vagina. It's called the urethral sponge. It's actually a structure that wraps around the urethra. And during arousal, it swells to protect the urethra. And by not giving myself time to become fully arousal before penetration, that urethral sponge was not protecting the urethra the way it needed to. And the theory is that that's why I was getting so many UTIs. Now, I've completely stopped the antibiotics.
I feel like if anybody like listening to this, like if that's like the biggest gem, that could be the biggest gem, like that. I mean, all like so many women get UTIs, and I'm just like, not that women who are fully aroused don't get them, but that's a really key thing for people to really consider.
Yep, it is.
Sexual health, right?
Yep, and that's one of the reasons I want to get this information out there. Is there's so many people who aren't aware of all of this.
Yeah, exactly.
So yes, we went through a period of, like I said, more or less 8 years where I essentially thought my sex life was over. And And I tried to convince myself that I was actually glad about that. Oh, that part of my life's over. I don't have to worry about periods. I don't have to worry about this. You know, sex, no big deal. My husband and I have a good relationship. It's much better over the last few years because we've worked on our relationship. And I tried to tell myself that that was good enough, that the sex just wasn't that important. But I missed it. I missed it so much. And yes, in those rare instances when we did have sex, I loved the cuddle time. I loved the time together. I loved being able to please my husband. But there was something missing. And what was missing was my pleasure.
Yes.
Yep. So, and pardon me?
I was just going to say, like, what was there any defining moment that brought you to that place that you were able to see, like, whoa?
Actually, I was just going to get into that.
Okay.
I don't remember what it was and how I came across it. I learned about vaginal dilators somewhere along the line.
Okay.
Talked to my GYN about it, and he kind of passed it off. Oh, you don't need one of those. That's just for women who have severe problems. But I decided I wanted to try it anyhow. So I went on Amazon and I bought my vaginal dilator.
Okay.
Now, this is the one I bought. I don't know if you can see that clearly. It's actually a set. As you can see, I can't see on my picture well enough. Can you see those?
I can't see them on the bottom, but I'm getting the picture that they.
Okay. I'm going to hold them up. So it's a series of graduated tubes. This is the smallest one. So I bought this on Amazon. This is the one I have. It's hard plastic. Once again, not knowing, I just kind of took what I found. There are others out there. This may work for some women. Other women may find it too uncomfortable. There are ones that are made of silicone. There's a variety of them out there. So it's a matter of taking a look and seeing which ones work for you. So I bought this and I started using it every day. I started out with the smallest tube, inserting it for just a moment. It was uncomfortable. I left it in for, I think it was a minute to begin with. And then over the course, when it became more comfortable, I moved up to the next size. Once again, I was using it every day for just a couple of minutes a day. And I actually made it part of a self-pleasure thing, even though I didn't really understand that was what I was doing at the time. And then I moved up to the next one. And I moved up to the next one. Only took me about a month to move through the 4 different sizes. So the first time my husband and I tried to have sex after I used this, penetration was not a problem. I still had to use a lubricant, but the pain was gone. And we went from having sex 3 to 4 times a year to 3 to 4 times a month, which was nice. I liked being able to please him. I liked being able to connect with him more. But the part that was still missing was my desire, my pleasure. And I think a lot of it stemmed from the fact that I spent so many of those years shutting my desire down. And it's like when you turn off an emotion, you can't just turn it back on. I needed something to help me turn that back on. And that actually happened the evening before my 25th wedding anniversary. My husband was going through his own things at the same time. He knew something was missing, and it wasn't just sex that was missing. Something was missing in our relationship and in his life. And he learned about a practice called Orgasmic Meditation. I don't want to get into fully what Orgasmic Meditation is in this video. We'll talk about that in another one. But it is a shared meditation with a sexual component where for 15 minutes, there's a few other steps, but for 15 minutes, he stroked my clitoris. No goal, not trying to climax, just notice what's in your body.
Mhm.
And he learned about it, and we tried it the evening before our 25th wedding anniversary, and it just blew me away.
Mm.
And it has completely, I still tell him, it is the best gift he has ever given me, because it has completely changed who I am as a woman. And it totally reignited our relationship with all the work that we've done over the last few years.
So to have this opportunity to just be in your own pleasure with no pressure, we're just doing this as
Yep.
this like experiment in sensation, and
Yep.
yeah, that's great.
No reciprocation. We build what's called the nest.
Mm-hmm.
And once I get into the nest, it's about both of us being in our pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
Because while he's stroking, he's experiencing things as well.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I get asked about OM is what's in it for the man.
Mm-hmm.
There's plenty in it for the man. They have their own sensations. And once again, I don't want to get too deeply into OM. I'll do another video about that maybe.
Yep.
So that was the first step on my journey to healing, not only what I'd gone through with my cancer, my hysterectomy and stuff, but also healing a lot of conceptions I had around sex.
Mm-hmm.
Because I grew up in a very conservative household where my mother was trying to protect me. I know she was doing the best based on her own experience,
Mm-hmm.
but basically it was that sex is for the man. It was my duty as a wife,
Mm-hmm.
and I shouldn't have sex before marriage.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't masturbate.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't flirt, because flirting was dangerous because it gives men the wrong idea. And after all, men are only after one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, I understand where my mother was coming from. She had her own experience that shaped her view of sexuality, but it didn't do anything to teach me about my pleasure
Mm-hmm.
and enjoying sex for my own right.
Yes.
So over the course of the last 6 years, I believe it is, 6 years, I have been on quite a journey for healing my sexuality, healing my attitude about sexuality. And part of that journey has also been stepping into myself as a woman, stepping into my power as a woman, gaining confidence about who I am. I've taken a number of courses, some specifically for women, some that I've done together with my husband. One of the courses that I took was around the Erotic Blueprints. Jaya Ma is the founder of the Erotic Blueprints. And that was about 4 years into my journey that we took that course, and he and I took it together. And that's when I really started focusing on my pleasure beyond intercourse.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I had done some work around self-pleasuring. I prefer the term self-pleasuring to masturbation. I had done some work around self-pleasuring, finding what I enjoyed in my body. But I used that more as a tool, and I was still so focused on sex being about intercourse.
Okay.
It was the Erotic Blueprints that really shifted for me, that there is so much more than intercourse to sex, so much more to enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And that just blew me away in such a way that that's why I became a coach.
Mm-hmm.
I just knew I had to get this information out there. So, but just to kind of step back and share some things with some of the women who may watch this video in the future. First of all, I wish I hadn't just taken my doctor's word for how things were.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I'd been an advocate for myself, gone to other doctors, got more information.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of what doctors do is they put women on hormone replacement therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I could not do hormone replacement therapy because of the type of cancer that I had. And some women just plain don't like the idea of artificial hormones.
Mm-hmm.
There are dietary ways to get estrogen into your body. There are topical estrogen that can be applied just in the vagina, so it's not getting all through your body. There are options out there, and I didn't know that. I just kind of took my doctor's word for it. So first of all, I would have become an advocate for myself with my doctor and started researching other things.
Like things other even beyond like going and seeing a medical professional, but perhaps even seeing like a sex coach like yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there are multiple professionals out there that I didn't even know existed. There are sex coaches, there are body workers, there are physical therapists who are actually trained in pelvic floor work.
Yes.
I didn't know any of this at the time. So there are other options out there. And honestly, I would have sought out support for other women who are going through this. Because that's one of the things I've gotten out of this conversation I've had with other women is they feel so alone.
Yeah, we need each other.
Yep, we do. And that's been one of the great things. Yeah. One of the great things about the communities and, you know, the way I met you and that type of thing is, you know, we can talk to each other and find out, oh, it's not just me. And, you know, I'm telling my story, what worked for me, may or may not work for another woman, but at least they have avenues they can investigate. So, the next thing I wanted to mention was lubrication.
Yes.
Part of menopause is we do lose our natural lubrication to some extent or another. Luckily, some women don't lose much of it. Others women lose it completely. KY is a great product for what it's meant for. And there are so many other lubricants out there on the market today. And I've actually got a number of examples with me today. So this is a different form of KY. This is a warming liquid. This one doesn't actually say what it's made out of, which I don't like. I like to know what it's made out of.
Okay.
But even KY has different formulations right now.
So I just want to let you know it's a little difficult to see exactly what it is, but maybe with the video you could list them. Oh, there we go. That's a little bit better.
And what I will, yes, this is KY warming liquid. So I will mention the name of each one as I hold it up. There are water-based lubricants. This happens to be a Trojan water-based lubricant. This is Astroglide. This is the water-based. Astroglide does have different formulations. This one happens to be their water-based ones. They also have silicone-based ones, which is the next one I want to mention. So this is Millennium. I'm not sure of the brand name, but this is a silicone-based lubricant. This is my preference for a silicone-based lubricant. It's called Pure, P-J-U-R. They also have hybrid lubricants. This is, I'll try to say the name, Sliquid.
Okay.
And it's a hybrid silicone water lubricant.
Okay.
And then this is one that I tried personally. I didn't like it. It's aloe vera based. It's called Pure Naked. So there's a lot of different choices.
Yeah.
And then there are oils.
Yes.
This is fractionated coconut oil. This is one that I like in certain circumstances. Now, what I want to say about certain circumstances, there are so many choices out there. And just to kind of categorize them, there's silicone-based, there's water-based, there's oil-based, and then there's kind of all what I think of as everything else. They're natural-based, they have different bases.
Okay.
What you really need to do is try the different ones and find the ones that work for you. And what you're doing with them makes a difference. Personally, I like the silicone-based ones when I'm when I'm interacting with my husband,
Okay.
when we're going to have intercourse. I generally like the silicone-based ones. I go for the water-based ones when I'm self-pleasuring, especially if I'm working with toys.
Okay.
I don't want to use the silicone-based one with the toys. Number one, some of them can react, but even if they don't react, they get so slippery, it's so hard to get the silicone off.
Mm-hmm.
What's nice about the silicone is it's a nice silky feel and it lasts, so you don't have to reapply it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're working with toys, that's kind of a detriment.
Mm-hmm.
And the coconut oil, I like when we're not going to engage in intercourse,
Okay.
when we're just doing hand play or when we're doing oral.
Okay.
So it's a matter of finding the lube that works for you for the particular circumstances. And one of the things that I found is nice is sometimes you can find samples of the different lubes.
Okay.
I have found them at some of the events that I've gone to. I have found them in lingerie stores.
Okay.
So you can try different ones.
Mm-hmm.
So that addresses lubrication.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I wanted to talk about is even though my muscles had tightened up, once I overcame the tightness issue, they were actually in some ways too loose.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't enjoying penetration as much because I wasn't feeling as much.
Okay.
So I got myself they're called various things. I refer to them as Yoni Eggs. They're little egg-shaped crystals, and they come in a variety of sizes, as you can see. They also come in a variety of materials.
Mm-hmm.
I like the natural materials. These happen to be jade. Sometimes they're called jade eggs.
Okay.
There are also what's called Benoit balls. Benoit balls. And those are usually stainless steel.
Okay.
But what you do is you insert them in your vagina.
Mm-hmm.
And when I bought these, I got the link to exercises that I could actually do with them.
Mm-hmm.
And you've heard of, I'm blanking on the name of the exercise you do for incontinence.
Kegels.
Kegels, yes, thank you.
Yes.
It's similar to Kegels.
Okay.
So I worked with these for a bit. Now, I still use them occasionally.
Mm-hmm.
I like to use them when I'm doing yoga.
Okay.
I actually have them in place, and then I can work on tightening and relaxing my pelvic floor muscles while I'm doing yoga.
Mm-hmm. So can
Sometimes,
I just yoga at home, or are you actually in a class?
no, yoga at home. I haven't tried it in the class.
Okay.
No reason why I couldn't, because I can insert it before and take it out after, but I haven't gone there.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Just
the
curious.
other thing I wanted to say about the eggs, and you probably can't see it here, they come drilled and undrilled.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer the drilled, and what you do, and they usually come with a string in them, my recommendation is to discard that string.
Mm-hmm.
And what you do is you thread unwaxed dental floss through it.
Okay.
And the egg should come with information on how to keep it clean.
Mm-hmm.
Part of keeping it clean is every time you use it, you throw out the dental floss and put fresh in. The string, in one way, is a security thing. If you feel uncomfortable with being able to retrieve it, you can use the string to retrieve it, just like you would with a tampon.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not going to get lost up there. Unless you've had a hysterectomy where they have removed your cervix, then I would check with your doctor before using it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to get lost out there, and in my experience, it's more likely to come out too easily.
Mm-hmm.
But if you really want the comfort, have the string in there. The other reason I like the string is when I use it for self-pleasuring, I actually tug on the string to have the resistance. So those are kind of the things I did to overcome my problem. And it has been quite a journey. That's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
And I am so glad that I've done it. I have to say I'm having the best sex of my life. And some of that comes from overcoming the attitudes that I picked up growing up. So that's my story.
Yeah. And I wonder if you can just speak to, you said overcoming some of the attitudes that you were around growing up. So, you know, just to speak to maybe some women that are out there that might just be beginning this journey, like, did all of this happen overnight for you?
Oh, absolutely not.
Or even in any short period of time?
No, it hasn't. It's taken time, and I've had a lot of support around it. I've taken courses, I've worked with coaches, and I don't think I could have done this alone. And I want to speak to some of the women out there who are thinking, well, that's all fine and good, but my partner isn't going to be interested. Yes, it helped my relationship, but it was changing who I was, changing my attitudes that were truly key to this. I am absolutely blessed to have a husband who was on this journey with me. And it's a journey that I needed to take for myself, not for him, not even for our relationship. I needed to take it for me. So the idea of, well, I can't do this because my partner isn't interested. Do it for yourself.
For your own.
And no, yep. And no, you know, like I said, I'm 6 years into this, and the courses I took gave me some quantum leaps over time. The courses I took have been multi-month courses. They've each contributed, and they were kind of that rocket boost. But 6 years to be where I am now. It does not happen over, and I'm still working on some things myself. You know, I still have some issues.
There's this idea of like the same way that we can approach sex or the oming that you mentioned before, like there's nowhere to get to.
Yep.
Like, it's continuous unfolding into who we are, like just in the whole of our being, but also as sexual beings.
Yep. Yep. And that's part of it, is just enjoying that part of the journey. And understanding that, you know, it's like playing an instrument. You don't get on the piano and expect to play a symphony within a week.
Right.
Practice, it's experimentation, it's finding what is pleasurable for you. And that doesn't look the same to everybody.
So I have one question that's coming up right now. When you were speaking earlier about women doing this for themselves. So why would women want to do this, or anyone really? Why would someone want to invest in their own sexual development, pleasure? Like, how has that like just helped you as a human being, like outside of your relationship? Like, what has that done for you?
I have to say the first thing that comes to mind is, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, I know.
But I also know the woman I was 6 years ago wouldn't have had a very good response to that.
Yeah.
Why would I? Because I have found that by investing in my pleasure, I am more pleasurable myself. I'm a lot less crabby than I used to be. Not that I don't get there at times, I'm less stressed out.
Mhm.
One of the things is that sex, whether it's self-pleasure, whether it's with a partner, actually decreases stress hormones
Mhm.
and increases the hormones that promote pleasure, relaxation.
Mhm. Mhm.
And sexuality, it's part of who we are.
Mhm.
And each person approaches it differently. There are some who need it less often than others,
Mhm.
but it's still part of who we are. And it's like eating. We all get attracted to different types of food. We all have our preferences in food, but it's still part of maintaining us as a human being.
Mhm.
And I see sex in much the same way, is finding what works for you in sex, whether it's just occasionally, whether it's all the time, whether it's self-pleasuring, whether it's engaging with a partner, what works for you. And just giving yourself permission to be in pleasure.
Yeah.
So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I love that. That's great.
Anything else I can answer for you?
I feel like you covered so much. Like there's so many great gems in here, and I think this is going to be so helpful to a lot of people.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm going to be posting this on my website.
Mm-hmm.
And if people watching this want more information, if they're struggling with something, they want to pop me a question or something, they can contact me through the website. And I can't say it very clearly, so hopefully you can read it. It is heateffectcoaching.com.
Awesome.
And you can go to the website and go to our contact us page and drop me a line. Let's talk.
Yeah,
Happy to talk with anybody.
great.
Thank you.
This is great.
Anything else you'd like to share?
I don't think so. I think
Okay.
this was a good conversation. Yeah.
Right. I like that we were able to set this up to just kind of be a conversation between friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually see that we went on longer than I intended, but I think it lasted what it needed to last.
Mm-hmm.
So I really appreciate you doing this with me. It just felt more natural.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
thank you.